time. He's got a towel draped over his head. Well, this is the same concept, except it's a hood. It's easy to put on. It can be worn under the helmet if you can get it under there to keep you warm. Or during the summer, these things can be soaked in ice water. So when the kid comes off the field to help alleviate overheating, heat exhaustion, heat strokes, is you put these things on their heads wet, and it keeps that core temperature down. So it's a great tool, great aspect. You can come by here and check out my wife, who's over here, got her table set up, ready to go. Get your So hoodie and protect these kids during the winter and during the summer throughout their football.
You know, Kenny, there are some areas in the South I would not recommend wearing this, however.
Why is that?
Yeah, well, I mean, people might get the wrong idea. I'm just saying, yeah. Hey. For God's sake, don't cut eyes out of the back and turn it around, because that's going to be a big problem for some people. Just a small recommendation from your friends.
Well, they come in various colors.
Yes. I mean, I'm just trying to help people here.
Hold on a second.
Uncle Fletcher is here to help, okay? I'm here to help.
You got to get this guy on your show once a week, man.
Oh,
call him and have him come in. Kenny and Fletcher.
All right, so our next question coming up, step up to the microphone. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and what's your question.
My name Kendrick Mitchell, South Carolina.
You can scoot up closer.
South Carolina.
Oh, yeah. All right. Do you think this is going to be a replay of the 2015 Fiesta Bowl where Ohio State thought they got snubbed out the playoffs, then come back with a chip on the shoulder and blow them out?
Well, number one, when does Ohio State not think they've been snubbed and get into the playoffs? Even back in the BCS Bowl days, when did they never thought that they were not snubbed? So that right there is just a given. Every time Ohio State is not in a bowl championship series game, they're going to think they got snubbed.
Yeah, Urban Meyer always thinks he's snubbed.
Yeah,
even when they're making the playoffs. He thinks he's snubbed when he's in the playoffs. Cold weather. So that's a behavior they have all the time. So maybe that's the chip that they like to carry. So like I said, you don't know which one you're going to get. You don't know if it's going to be the Ohio State team that comes out with that true snub, or the one that feels like they're dejected because they didn't make it. So we'll see by the first quarter. You usually know. You can tell. It usually starts with their defense. Yeah.
I think it's always a good ploy for motivation. You know, if I were coaching at Ohio State, I would say, hey, look, man, these guys have snubbed us. Every week when Hoptown played, we had been snubbed. I used the same speech every week. We had always been snubbed by somebody. And it kind of got old. After about 10 weeks, they thought, well, our coach, nobody likes him anywhere we go, which was actually the case. And we were actually being snubbed, but I think you can use it for motivation.
If we can get Aaron, what do you think? Since Richie and Steven are so busy with their Facebook Live right now.
We're promoting the hoodies.
When Richie Martin and I are running our ball club in Sweden, we are going to proclaim that every European country has snubbed us. Because there is and I'm announcing today, there's an anti-Scandinavian bias out there in Europe today. And Martin and I are coming to rectify all of that. We are going to kick some German butt all over the European theater.
I agree with a lot of what everybody said up here, but I think the snub is going to be a part of it. But I also think it's going to be a great recruiting thing for both schools. You're going to have the East Coast versus the West Coast. And what it's going to come down to, two of the biggest names on each coast are going to play each other. So they're going to go out there and play for pride no matter what. I mean, snub or not, it's going to be both teams playing for pride, recruits. It's a lot on the line in this game. So I think they're both going to come out and play hard, but USC will probably win.
All right.
Nobody agrees.
He's still going to hang on that USC. He's going to stay right there. All right, next question.
I agree with Aaron.
I think, Aaron, you and I should start a Lane Kiffin Has Wronged Us support group. And we will meet in the conference room in 30 minutes. Anybody wants to talk about how Lane Kiffin has wronged their football program?
Yeah, we ran him out of Oakland, too.
Yes, you did.
We wanted him back. That's how sick we are. That's called Stockholm Syndrome. We wanted him back.
We got a question? Yeah, dude, I'm Ronald Gant with Ohio State having a better quarterback. Do you think they're going to have the ability to just blow this game out?
Well, it depends on which team influences young Gant to be a recruit. That's the team that's going to win. So,
well, let me ask you this. So you believe that J.T. Barrett for Ohio State is better than Sam Darnold for USC?
Of course.
Even though Sam Darnold was in the Heisman running.
Yes.
I think J.T. Barrett's more of a program quarterback.
Okay.
And I think he's just a part of the program. I don't think Ohio State. I think they can go in. Of course, Dwayne Haskins is one of our alumni, and he went there and led Ohio State to a big win over Michigan, and he looked just as good as J.T. Barrett. So, they have a good crew of backup quarterbacks. So I don't think it's J.T. Barrett. I think he's just a system quarterback, and that's why it hurts him, because you don't see anything that he does as dynamic. I think that Donald is a little more dynamic, and he's a difference maker with USC. And I think what makes USC pass more, because he's more dynamic than you want to invest into the run game. So I think that's the difference. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Anybody else got any questions? Come on up. Same thing. Let's know who you are, where you're from, and what's your question.
My name's Armando Fuqua. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri.
Fuqua.
I guess my question is, we have a few recruits from St. Louis that I think they're four or 5-star rated receivers that chose to go to Ohio State. Then I heard they already have like a 5-star receiver that was already there before. And they're supposed to be, I think, also getting like a 4 or 5-star quarterback. So my question is, with the history and almost like the reputation that Meyer has with producing, quarterbacks and stuff like that, do you think that he's trying to make a transition to get away from that?
Let me tell you, I've been around this for ages, because I've been running the high school American Bowl for the last 14 years. And kids want to go to winning programs.
Gotcha.
They like to go to win. 4 or 5-star guys want to go places that are successful in winning. So you always get a logjam of guys there that go to these universities. The thing about it is that it's just like when you come to an All-American Bowl. You may be great where you're at, but it all will come out in the end when you get there with the other guys from around the country. Even if you're a 5-star guy, you're going to run up against the other 5-star guys, and you're going to have to compete against those guys for that same position. To me, I say, hey, you don't want to go into the ocean with everybody else. You can own the lake. So to me, that happens every year. There'll be 4 or 5 more 5-star receivers heading to Ohio State next year. The thing of it is, some of them will pan out, some won't. Some will transfer, and at the end of the day, it's just who's going to funnel through, and so they got to go with the same work ethic and go out there and try hard. Yeah.
I think I'm thinking the same thing. Like a kid coming into high school, he's in junior year, he's a 4-star guy. And you get a guy like Urban Meyer to come to your house to do a home visit. He's sitting in your living room. That's a wow factor. You know what I mean? Same thing down south with like Nick Saban. Nick Saban goes into somebody's living room. He has control of that room. It doesn't matter how many 5-star rooms he goes into. He's going to capture every single room, which means he's going to capture all those prospects. And being a football player, you want to go to the best and compete and be the best. And you want to win. Nobody wants to, my favorite college team is Pitt, and I feel ashamed saying that because they're so bad. You know what I mean? But if more people went to, if Pitt was getting 5-star recruits and stuff, you would see Pitt winning national championships. You see Alabama's, Ohio State's, now it's going to be the USC's, UCLA's. They're going to start coming out because they're getting those guys every year. You know what I mean? You can't win a national championship against, a team full of 5-star recruits versus a team full of 3-star recruits. There's a reason why.
Well, I evaluate prospects for a living for Kentucky Prep Gridiron. I'm just not as good at it as Cooper, but one thing that I've noticed at the quarterback position is I get colleges will call me up. I had this kid named Buey that was from University School in Jackson, and I was trying to get him to go to EIU, which is Eastern Illinois, which produced Jared Garoppolo, produced Tony Romo, Mike Shanahan. They've had some quarterbacks at Eastern Illinois and Charleston, Illinois, which is pretty close to you. Well, anyway, so I sent him the film of Jacob Buey, and I get this call back from the defensive coordinator who was recruiting Tennessee. And he said, Coach Long, I've got 60 videos of this guy setting up and throwing the ball downfield. I said, yeah, you're welcome. He said, no, we need to see if he can run. I mean, we need to see if he can avoid the rush. We need to see if he's an athlete. I mean, you need to go back to the field and give us some film of him running a rope ladder and maybe running the cones or something. And it just reminded me of, we used to think that dual threats couldn't play at a high level of football. First we saw him in high school, and it was, well, he's a nice high school player, but there's no room for that in the college game. Then we see, because of Urban Meyer and the spread offense and the requirements of the zone read outside run play, and you got to have that offense doesn't work if your quarterback never pulls it. He can't always see a slow end. He's got to see a fast end and pull it, And now we're even seeing up in the NFL that there is, Dan Marino, since you're a Pittsburgh fan, here's a guy that, I mean, good Lord, if you got after him, it was over. I mean, I can outrun Dan Marino. I'm telling you right now. And I not only can outrun Dan Marino, I couldn't his prime because Marino's slow as Christmas. And I can also outrun Dan Fouts. But anyway, but you have to be an athlete now, even at the NFL level, and that used to not be the case, but you have to be. Peyton Manning told me one time that he ran the rope ladder every day of his professional football life. Every day he ran the ladder to work on his feet. And so I think that's what Urban Meyer has brought to the game as much as anything, is you're seeing guys that are less quarterbacks, more athlete, right? Because they don't have to necessarily make the proper read and work through the progression if they can break you down with their feet. I think you're seeing that more and more, and I don't think that's going to reverse anytime soon.
I think with guys like Nick Saban and Coach Myers, they're building dynasties. I mean, you don't hear about these guys losing their jobs. They get there, they build dynasty, they bring in 5-star players, and they have, they win. And that's basically what it is. But on the flip side of that, it happened to us at A&M in the 90s. When I was there in the late 80s, we were pretty good, and we were getting a lot of 4- and 5-star guys. But some of those guys are going to figure out they're not going to hit the field. And some are going to transfer out and so forth and so on. But the main thing is they're going to keep on winning. So I think that's something as a recruit you have to look at. Look at the guys in front of you. I know all of them think that they can come in and play, but you got to really think about the people that are in front of you and what you want for your future.
Gotcha.
Do you remember Kurt Barber from Paducah, Kentucky at USC? Do you remember him? Yeah, do you remember him? Big linebacker. I was just wondering if you remembered him. And Todd Marinovich. Remember him?
I remember Todd Marinovich.
Yeah, I mean, Barber started at linebacker for USC, but Marinovich is kind of what I'm talking about. This was a guy that was tall. They had to be real tall. He had to have a high point of release. Didn't care if he could move his feet or not as long as he could set up, right? Well, it's just that kind of guy I don't know translates well to the college game presently. I don't think that translates very well.
So we're all good on that one? We start talking about 4- and 5-star recruits, and I just put my head down because University of Nebraska ain't getting nothing right now.
I don't know. I think you're changing that. I think you made a good hire. Tom Osborne really didn't care how many stars you had. He also didn't care if you knew what he was running.
No.
I mean, Osborne's linemen would come up and go, hey, man, we're running dead at you. I hope you're man enough to stop it. And oftentimes we found out we weren't near man enough to stop it. And it just goes, there's so much attempted deception in football. It really comes down to blocking and tackling. I mean, I agree with Russ Grimm. The most powerful thing in sports is to move a man from point A to point B against his will.
I'm just excited to see Nebraska play Tennessee, and you're a loser, so you get to play in this bowl game.
Yeah, well, we would lose that game too, and it would be because of Lane Kiffin. And again, we're 10 minutes away from our support group meeting right over here. Anybody, if you feel you've been wronged by Lane Kiffin, including the women out there, because we know about that rumor. But if you feel you've been wronged by Lane Kiffin, meet us right back here for the Lane Kiffin support group.
Wow, he went down that road. All right.
You have Nebraska where they're having their problem is they're not recruiting nationally anymore.
No, they're not.
And the fact of it is, I had some friends that used to coach on Nebraska back then when they were winning, and they used to heavily recruit out of New Jersey and some of these other areas. And if you look at their roster now, they're not they're tapped out in those areas. So they're not getting that draw where you're getting those kids or even the alumni of the Urban Friars, the Mike Roziers of the world